Alright, I'll admit it, we've been talking a lot about the PTS lately and I've given some strong opinions about one thing or the other in plenty of those videos. But now that I've kind of said almost everything that I wanted to say, either through those videos or a couple of forum posts, I'd like to have just a few minutes and take the channel back to what I originally created it for. No, I'm not talking about the YouTube money. I'm talking about the tips, tricks, guides and all that sort of stuff because it's been way too long since we did a proper video like that. So yeah, for today I dug up and went through my Division Bible and compiled a list of gameplay tips, tricks and mechanics that I think a very large part of the player base isn't really aware of yet. Admittedly, some of this stuff is rather basic and I'm pretty sure that I'm going to go over some things that some of you may have already figured out on your own. But I'll tell you this, you're free to press that dislike button if there isn't at least one thing in this video that you didn't already know about, because that's how confident I am that you're going to learn some new shit today. So what do you say? Let's begin. The first mechanic that I want to go over are the skills and the skill cooldowns. Now I'm pretty sure that a lot of people already know about this, but I'm just going to repeat it just in case anybody isn't aware yet. But how strong your skills are is decided the moment that you activate that skill. So for instance, if you drop down a support station, that support station will continue to heal players for the exact same amount of time for its entire duration, no matter if the player that uses the support station loses or gains skill power in the meantime. You could drop a very strong support station and then switch to a build with no skill power and your support station will still continue to heal you for just as much. The same goes for all the other skills in the game. Your shield's health is decided the moment that you activate it. Your fire turret's damage, your pulse's crit chance or crit damage, all of those things are decided for the entire duration of the skill the moment that you press that button. And interestingly enough, the same applies to the cooldown of a skill. The cooldown of a skill is decided the moment that the skill cooldown starts. Now this is all pretty basic information, but what it does for the player, well, it means that it is optimal to activate your skills when buffs such as Talented, Inventive or Death by Proxy are active, as it will result in skills that remain stronger even when those buffs themselves are gone already. And the signature skill also works in the exact same ways as the normal skills. So for everybody that's playing with a low skill haste or a low skill power build, what you could do in some situations is drink a soda to boost your skill haste and then activate your signature skill, which will then result in a much faster cooldown for your signature skill, as again, the cooldown of the signature skill was decided the moment that you activated it. Of course, this doesn't just apply to the soda, it was just an easy example, but any source of skill power or skill haste buffs work in the exact same way. You can use the Recharge your Smart Cover mod or the Ammo Cache support station, which both give all players 15% skill haste as well. They can be used in the exact same way, where players can activate their skills inside of the station range or inside of the smart cover range and then run out of the range again and still have the full effect that the 15% skill haste would give them, because the cooldowns are snapshotted. Do keep in mind though that the skill haste cap is currently 50%. So if you already have 50% skill haste, then this trick will not do much for you. More on the topic of skills, did you know that enemy armor damage and damage to elites also applies to your sticky bomb and your seeker mine? Well, if you didn't know, at least now you know. Having 50% enemy armor damage and 50% damage to elites will effectively make those skills 100% more powerful versus elites. If you're one of those PvE players that has a skill-focused build, it might be time to take this into consideration and try to find some room for upgrades. For example, something as simple as equipping an assault rifle, which always comes with added enemy armor damage, somewhere between 17 and 24%, increases the damage of your skills by, well, 17 to 24%. You can also add talents such as Destructive and Ferocious to that weapon for even more damage, or slot in some purple gear mods with damage to elites if you really want to push things. Oh, and by the way, if you can't unlock some of those talents, you can of course always try to craft a lower gear score variant, which of course has lower requirements, but at that point you're also giving up some weapon damage, so that would only be worth it in the more extreme cases. Unlike skills and skill cooldowns though, the enemy armor damage and damage to elite values are not snapshotted and instead update live, which means that in theory you could shoot out your sticky bomb or drop your seeker mine on the floor and then quickly switch to your assault rifle before it damages the NPCs and still get value out of the enemy armor damage. This is useful for if you want to play with a sniper in PvE content because you're always in the back, but then you still want to get the most value out of your skills. Unfortunately, for some reason, the enemy armor damage and damage to elite modifiers do not apply to the turret. The damage that the turret outputs is not increased in any way, shape or form, which might be a bug, but I don't really know. It working with the seeker mine and the sticky bomb in the first place, that might be the bug. I'm not quite sure which one is intended. I did notice while testing though that the turret is also able to land headshots, so I did of course want to see if those headshots would be able to proc talents such as cool-headed or precision, but no luck there. Anyway, it's time to move over to some stuff that will be most useful in PvP. For example, did you know that certain status effects can be applied to enemies through walls and floors? The status effects that I'm talking about are Fire, EMP, and Disorient. Try throwing any of those grenade types next to a wall and have another player stand on the other side of it, and you'll be able to see it for yourself. All of those effects will be applied to that player, and in the case of the EMP grenades, you can even be staggered through the walls. It isn't just limited to the grenades either. Skills that apply these status effects, such as the gas mine or the EMP sticky bomb, work in the exact same way, and what makes this really strong is that the EMP effect is also applied to any skill objects behind those walls. So if you, for example, have a support station or a fire turret around the corner, keep in mind that players can disable it through any wall as well. A small way to sort of counteract this though, and this is something that I oh so often used myself as well in the past, is to throw the support station high up in the air the moment that your team wants to push in. What a lot of players do not know is that skills such as the support station or the auto turret cannot be destroyed or disrupted while they are in mid-air, while your agent is throwing them into the air. So what ends up happening, if you do it right, is that when your team is pushing, the enemies will be reacting with their skills such as the EMP sticky, but then the good player that you are threw the station into the air before they shot, but the station has not landed yet when the sticky actually goes off. So yes, in these scenarios your team will be disrupted for just a split second, but if you time it right, you and your team will end up being immune with a support station that is still active. So far most of these tips have been skill orientated, but I've also got a golden tip for those DPS players out there, although this next thing it may be a bit gimmicky to pull off if you're just getting started. However, if you do it right, it will allow you to shoot at enemies around corners without them being able to see you. So how do you do this? Well, have you ever noticed that when you stand close to a wall, your cursor will do this weird thing where it pulls back to the back of the screen and you hit the object that's in front of you instead of the target? That's because your weapon is blocked off by the corner. I'm pretty sure that everybody has had this happen at least a few times. However, there's a way to avoid this. If you stand close to the wall and then scope in through your weapon to go into first person mode, the camera view won't change that much, but the game will now allow you to shoot at what you're looking at. It doesn't matter how close you are to the wall. So what you can do is you can crawl up to walls and corners really close, which will allow you to shoot around those corners without revealing yourself and potentially get some free damage right before the fight starts. Or if you're playing a very high DPS build, you can even burst people down without them being able to see you. Again, to pull this off the right way, it takes a bit of practice. You have to teach yourself when you can do this and when not, and when it's actually useful, when it actually helps. But you'll eventually figure it out, and when you do, it's going to give you a huge advantage over players that don't know how to do this. Additionally, this can also be used against NPCs when you're having trouble completing some content. You can peek around the corners the same way and freely dish out some damage. And even if the NPCs aggro on you, they will not be able to shoot back at you because technically, well, you're behind a wall. By the way, did you know that there are a few safety mechanics in the game to prevent players from dying too fast? Have you ever noticed how when you receive a lot of damage from NPCs, you are often left with just a slimmer of your health, just 1%, just a couple of pixels? I'm here to tell you that that is not being lucky. It actually happens if you take too much damage at once. The game will actually lock your HP bar at 1% and you will be unkillable during this time, giving you some time to pop your heals and maybe get away. Interestingly enough, this is also applied to PvP in some cases. For example, when you have your recovery link and it goes off automatically because you take fatal damage, you will get about 2 seconds of immortality, where no matter how much damage you take, you simply cannot fall below 1 HP. This one in particular is important because it means that you can face tank as many players as you want for those 2 crucial seconds, as long as your recovery link is not on cooldown yet. It doesn't really stop there though, because players also receive a very lengthy immortality status after a revive. Try it yourself, have a friend go down and then being revived and then try to shoot him right after. First thing you will notice is that he's not able to take any damage. However, this one is not really that abusable, because if you go down too often in a row, you will be marked with the unsafe status that can be seen on the bottom left of the screen. When you're in this unsafe status, your screen will turn foggy and white, and the next time that you will go down, it will result in an instant death, skipping the down state entirely, and this is most likely put in place to prevent too much cheesing using these immortality states. To end the video, I also want to go over some testing regarding the medkit that I did on the PTS and its new functionality. The developers have said that in addition to removing status effects, a medkit will now also grant the player a few seconds of immunity, so you will not be instantly put on fire again if you, for example, cleanse yourself. However, it doesn't work 100% as I expected it to work. You see, I assumed that a medkit would now give you the immunity buff, as if you're in a support station for 2 seconds, which would mean that, for example, you could pop a medkit before running into a fire, or pop it just before a shock turret is about to hit you to prevent their status effects entirely. But that is not actually how it works. You see, the medkit only gives you that immunity if you actually use it to remove a status effect. It cannot be used preemptively, and then, if you use it to remove a status effect, it only gives you the immunity versus that one status effect, not versus all of them. So if you use a medkit while disorientated, you will not be able to get disorientated again for like 2-3 seconds, but you can still get EMP'd. One more interesting thing as well is that the moment that you pop a medkit while being targeted by a fire turret, the fire turret will stop shooting at you for about 2 to 3 seconds, which can prevent a lot of damage if you're up against a Firecrest user. I'm not quite sure if this is intended or not. I'm thinking that it's not intended actually, but then again, pretty sure that half of the stuff on this list isn't working as intended, and that's why it's also a tips and tricks video after all, to teach you some of the things that probably the developers don't even know about. Anyway, that is going to be all for now. I hope it helped some people out. The promise is still there. If you haven't learned anything new, you're free to hit that dislike button. But as always, I will see you guys later, or like they say in the Netherlands, zie je later.